Welcome. You're listening to the 365 Firsts podcast, a show filled with stories of experiencing first times and all the fun, growth, unknowns, and excitement that go with them. It's also the place to get expert advice, motivation, and inspiration to get in on trying new things. And now, here's your host, the master of first times, and chick you're trying to keep up with, Ann Bernard.
Today, my guests on the Expert Advice Before Your First Time series are Ben and David from Cruise with Ben and David. And they're here to give you expert advice before your first time going on a cruise. Cruise with Ben and David began as a passion project, a way for them to share their love for cruising and also to dispel the old stereotypes people might have associated with going on a cruise. Since their first upload to YouTube 2 years ago, things have taken off and they stay busy producing high-quality cruise ship tours, stateroom tours, cruise vlogs, and excellent and useful cruise advice on YouTube. That's how I found them on YouTube and why I invited them to come on to be the experts on the show to set you all up with the information you need to have the best first cruise experience possible. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Thanks, Anne. I think we need to take you everywhere with us because that was a perfect explanation of what we do. Yeah. It wasn't really planned. We only did it because we were invited on our friend's wedding, which was taking place on a cruise. Obviously, we hadn't done a cruise before, and we had in our minds all of those old stereotypes of just like a glorified ferry, so something not really glamorous. And it, honestly, the second we got on that cruise, our first cruise, it was just so different to how we imagined it.
We hadn't even got to our cabin, and Ben turned around to me and said, "I think we'll be booking another one."
Honestly,
we literally hadn't even got into the stateroom yet, and you just knew that it was something we would enjoy. And instantly we knew that it was not what we thought it was going to be, and it's not what we expected.
No, just everything. It really reminded us of a luxury, because we stayed in some nice hotels around the world. So this was the perfect base. It was like a luxury hotel that moved, so we didn't have to unpack and pack every time we went somewhere. There was no travel in between the stops. You would go to bed on a night in one country and wake up the next morning in a new country. And it was just completely different to how we imagined it. Just everything combined, the food, the amazing service, the facilities on board, and the entertainment as well. It was just all so surprising to us, wasn't it?
Yes, that's really good to hear, because that's one of the reasons why I haven't been on a cruise. So I've been to over 40 countries, so I'm an avid traveler, but I really like immersing myself in the locations where I go. I like going to the cafes, getting to know the locals, pretty much do all my traveling alone. So it gives me a great opportunity to really meet a lot of new people and again, immerse myself in the culture. And I just feel, and I've been to places where cruises stop. And I think that's given me a bad taste for it, because I see the people, they're like in Belize, they go to Belize City and they hang out at the port and they might do a few things or there. And they're just missing on just how much Belize has to offer. And I was like, well, are they really truly getting the full value of what a location has to offer? So what are your thoughts on that? We're kind of going right digging into it.
You can book shore excursions whilst on a cruise, which you book the sort of a cruise itinerary day that they've made up for you to do. So it's really up to you. You can kind of do whatever you want.
And it also gives you a great taste of a place or of a few places on one cruise, which you may then want to go back to for a longer holiday. Our first cruise, we departed from Barcelona, so we had a taste of Barcelona, and we've actually visited, not on a cruise after, because we loved the city so much. But since visiting them on a cruise, we've really enjoyed them, and they've become some of our favourite places to go to and to visit, and definitely would go back to them.
Yeah, the Norwegian fjords, especially in Malta.
Yeah. Well, first of all, there's two types really of ocean cruise. You've got ocean cruise and river cruising. They're two completely different types of experience. And first of all, with ocean cruising, you have so many options to choose from. Our biggest tip to anybody who is looking into a cruise is find the right cruise line for you and the right ship for you, because each ship is completely different and can offer you a different experience.
It's definitely the most vital tip that you choose the correct cruise line for you. Otherwise, you could experience sort of all the stereotypes that you were worried about if you didn't, because there's cruises for different ages, different types of people. It's really crazy, isn't it? At first, it can seem quite daunting, but once you start doing a little bit of research, it's fully a personal choice. Some people prefer saving money and booking an inside cabin. Cabins in general, so inside's usually the cheapest. An ocean view cabin, which means a cabin usually with a porthole window, the second cheapest. It's crazy, but it's all down to personal preference. It's what do you want from your cruise? Do you want to spend a lot of time on a balcony looking at the sights because it's beautiful at sunrise? And what, like we said earlier on, one of our favourite things, getting away from everybody else and having our own little personal outdoor space, which is really nice.
Why waste the money when you could be using that money on either spending money or doing something in the ports and seeing the ports more? If it is really just a place to rest your head, go for an inside cabin because you're going to be saving a lot of money compared to choosing a balcony that you may not even use.
Yeah. And a quick tip would be for those who suffer with motion sickness, to book a cabin which is low down and towards the center of the ship, just because that's where the center of gravity, the least amount of movement is on the ship. So the more forward or aft you get, the more movement you get when the ship rolls and pitches.
And while it might not matter what type of cabin you have, and the location of your cabin makes a big difference. If you choose a cabin, you need to make sure that you look what's around the cabin on the ship's plan. Doesn't matter what type of cabin you choose, just make sure that your cabin is in a good location.
For those who are listening to the podcast, you can see me pointing because I do get motion sickness. And actually, if you do listen to the podcast, you've heard me talk about some particularly sticky situation where I got sick and it was not pleasant.
Just to mention about the seasickness thing, all of the modern ships now have really good stabilization technology. So especially from, say, ferry transports and smaller ships, because they're so big, you don't tend to feel it as much.
We've had a couple of bad transatlantic crossings are usually quite bumpy. Nothing to the extreme.
No, they're just a bit of bumpiness. But yeah, the best way to avoid that is, like I say, when choosing your cabin and sensibly choosing the time when you cruise as well. So sort of avoiding hurricane season in the Caribbean. Generally, when you book a cruise, what would be included is obviously the fare on the cruise, your cabin, which would be cleaned and turned down once a day. And the main dining rooms would be included as well. So there's usually 2 or 3 main dining rooms on a cruise ship. And this is where you would go for lunch, breakfast and dinner. They would always be included completely free, as well as the buffet. And usually 2 or 3 quick service restaurants as well. And what would be extra are the specialty restaurants. So most cruise lines call them specialty restaurants. And this just means that they have an extra charge. Usually they would be much cheaper than what you would pay on land, but you'd receive an amazing sort of 3 or 4 course meal. So you're usually talking about in the region of about $30 each per person as a cover charge. But many cruise lines also offer dining packages as well.
Like I say, just do your research. There's some that there's a lot more included in the cost there, and then there's others that charge you for a lot while you're on board. So it is really down to research.
Yeah, definitely research.
So what is the boarding process like? What should people be prepared for and ensure that they do to make it as easy as possible?
Basically like boarding a plane, almost very similar.
For ocean cruising, it's definitely, for the ocean ships, it's very similar to boarding an aeroplane.
Yeah.
But the first things first, I think we always say, is stay in a hotel at the port the night before your cruise. That's the biggest tip we always give.
Definitely don't fly down on say if you're in New York and you're flying to Miami to meet a cruise, it's definitely worth going the day before, just in case.
But that's one of the most important things to remember, is that your luggage will get taken from you when you arrive at the port. It's really important to remember to have your documents in your bag, essentials, medication in your bag, because you may not see your cruise suitcase until later into the evening.
But yeah, it's super easy, no different to really getting on a plane. You called onto the ship.
Well, thank you, because at least knowing that ahead of time puts you in the right mindset to expect it.
Yeah, exactly.
The way it's happening, you're like, well, I knew it was going to be like this. This is not how it's going to stay. And they'll be happy that they have their medicine, their swimsuits, and everything else that they needed because they listened to the show. They got your advice. They're cruising like pros, even though it's their first time. Okay. Is there luggage limit?
Not really. I think if you can lift the case, because you've got to remember people are transporting your luggage as well. So, but there's not a limit in how much you take on board. You can take
if you want to take on 2 full cases, that's fine. So there's not really, the only thing you're not really allowed to take on, obviously, weapons, irons, things like that. There's not really much you can't take on, really.
I think my biggest tip as well to any 5-star cruiser is just relax and enjoy it, and just enjoy yourself. It's a vacation.
All the cruise lines now have fully equipped gyms on board.
That's the great thing, isn't it? You can vacation the way you want. Yeah. If you just want to not even look at a gym and just be in the buffet 4 times a day, that's up to you. But if you want to use the gym and go swimming and hiking and all sorts, it's really up to you how you vacation.
Yeah, definitely.
Every single cruise line is required by international maritime law. I know that now because they say that every single time. They are required to give you a safety demonstration. And on the first day of your cruise, before you've even departed from the port, you will gather there and you will check in and you will do the safety demonstration, which will explain all the safety features on board and what would happen in the likely event, I should say, of any sort of emergency. But it's nothing to be worried about. And quite frankly, a lot of people see that as once the muster drill's done, that's it. That is the start of vacation. So yeah, they do have a safety demonstration. And of course, the safety is their number one.
Absolutely. I think the Cruise Line International Association, which sort of is the union for all of the cruise ships, I think they've stated it's the safest form of transport in the world as a whole.
Yeah, you do see a lot of the news stories of
people jumping off the ship,
people falling off cruise ships or something happening on a cruise ship. And it's all these big sensationalist stories. It is very, very rare. Cruise ships are very safe and you only hear bad news really about them.
Again, Clea, who we just mentioned, they stated as well that nobody acting responsibly has ever fallen off a ship. So it's always either alcohol or other issues that would happen on land in a land-based hotel. So they are incredibly safe out there. I mean, we've never felt unsafe ever. And they're great at keeping you updated, like in bad weather and things like that. So you're not sort of wondering what's happening. There's really great communication and
that makes a lot of sense. So what's your next cruise that you have planned?
That's it. We're done now for the year.
We're done for the year. So I think our next one will be on the brand new Virgin Voyages, hopefully in early next year. So that's getting launched in Europe and then coming across to Miami. And that is a completely brand new cruise line who are really going against the grain in bringing really modern cruising to sort of millennial audience and a slightly younger audience. Yeah. So definitely something a little bit different. And unlike some cruise lines, they're actually a lot more inclusive. So gratuities are included. There is no specialty dining on board because it's all high-end dining. So so that's going to be definitely very interesting to go on board because that's a brand new ship and a brand new concept. So we're quite looking forward to seeing how it sort of differs from other cruise lines.
All right, well, splendid. So how do people get in touch with you guys?
youtube.com/cruise with, or you can just search Cruise with Ben and David and you should see us come up there. Me and my little captain's hat, that'll pop up.
We're on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram as well. We're just Cruise with on those as well, so you can search for us on there. And we're always happy to answer any questions. And we've got lots of videos on there for first-time cruisers and people who have cruised before as well, with loads of information and extra specific stuff on there if you did want to find out anything more.
Splendid. And for those who are listening, you can go to the 365 First Challenge website, and for this episode, obviously I will have shared all of their links that they shared with you, so you can just click on through and get with Ben and David, and if you have any other answers. But I think you provided a wealth of information. I'm very grateful you came on the show. I hope you did too. If you're going on your first cruise in 2020, make sure that you let me know, because I'm going to want to hear all about it. I love having experts on the show to give you the latest scoop and the best information possible before you have your first time. But I also want to have 365 First participants come on the show and share what your experiences are like. So if you're interested in being a guest, send me an email, contact@365firstchallenge.com, and we'll get you on the show. show to share some of your stories of your first times and new experiences. Until we meet again, subscribe to the show if you haven't already done so, or leave a review. Keep on swiping to make your list and get out there and have as many first times as possible.
You've been listening to the 365 Firsts podcast. Hope you've gotten inspired to start your journey of first times and new experiences. Join the 365 Firsts Challenge by downloading the app at your local app store. Check out Next Level Firsts Coaching for additional assistance. Contact us if you want to share the stories of your latest firsts on the show. Now, go get busy having new experiences.